Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Kirkawani. My friends call me Iman. Please call me Iman. And this is the first session. We are going to discuss English language teaching, ELT. You are all teachers yourself. So it is a pleasure to have you on board. Please feel free to ask any questions. As you see on the first slide, we have ISE, which is the school I represent, International School of English. On top of it, a beautiful picture of Dublin. And two other images of Dublin and learning English. If we could go to the next slide, please. You see a general outline. Today we will be discussing evolution of ELT methodologies and pedagogies. In another session, engaging ELT techniques for maximum student participation. Third, classroom management strategies that actually work. Moving on to fourth, class psychology, how students think and learn best. Number 5, the fifth session, teaching across cultures, ELT in a globalized world. Next comes up technology and ELT, enhancing language learning with digital tools. Since the digital revolution, this has become more and more imperative. We move towards the science of motivation and language learning. With students being preoccupied with Instagram and other matters, motivating has become ever more difficult. The role of assessment in ELT, and moving beyond the traditional testing methods. We move towards the future in number 9, ELT trends and future developments. And we finish with ELT trends and future developments 2, which will go into more depth. If we go to the next slide, we will see a video of Dublin and one of International School of English. If we could see them in order, I would appreciate it.
Over 1,000 years old, Ireland's capital Dublin is situated on the east coast and about halfway down the island. It's a colourful city full of history, interesting sights and Irish characters. The best way to get around is by foot, and there's no end of shops, restaurants and lively. A good deal of historic landmarks and attractions are dotted on both sides of the Liffey and include cathedrals, old jails, historic parklands and stately mansions. Dublin has had its share of famous figures and writers, poets and musicians famous the world over who come from this great city. Visitors interested in soaking up some famous Irish pub culture invariably head to the Temple Bar, a central group of cobbled streets that are a focus of the nightlife and a great place to visit in the daytime too. Dublin is a city full of life. It is rich in culture, character, and a place where anyone from around the world will feel welcome.
Well, Dublin is a very beautiful city. It is vibrant, and I'm sure anyone who has traveled will tell you the same. If we could see the next video, which is about International School of English in Dublin, I would appreciate it.
Welcome to ISE, the International School of English based in Dublin, Ireland. Every summer, high school students from all over the world. In class, you'll get the opportunity to improve your speaking, listening, reading, and writing skills, expand your vocabulary, and develop your grammatical knowledge and pronunciation of the English language. Our teachers are qualified, experienced, and really care about our students' progress. At the end of your course, you will be expected to complete a progress test and to give a group presentation to your peers about your stay in Ireland. You will then receive an course academic report and in based learning. We provide you with a rich and varied social activities program, which is a fun-filled, relaxed environment in which you can interact and practice your English language skills. Every day after class and on our menu, one day you may visit the Guinness factory and the next the National Gallery of Art, or perhaps the Phoenix Park. Dublin has many interesting places in the evenings. You might watch a film in the open air or walk through the bustling cobblestone streets of Temple Bar in the city centre. So, if we're looking for an educational trip for next summer, one that allows you to improve your English skills, make new friends, and take part in many fun and interesting cultural activities while learning more about Dublin and Ireland, this program is the one for you. We look forward to welcoming you here soon.
I've been here for almost 2 weeks now, and we've been going to class every day for 3 hours, and we have a 15-minute break. And I think it's been a wonderful experience here in this school, but the whole trip, a little bit of Viking, how do you write in Viking, and the accommodation fantastic. We all have, and we have a place where we can eat and watch the films. The class is amazing. We are only 8 because of COVID, and there's a German boy with us as well, and it's, I think, very important that we got to communicate with him in English, and I really liked it.
Well, thank you for watching those 2 videos. Can we please go to our next slide? Yes, the one after this one, please. Well, yeah, evolution. To quote Charles Darwin, everything evolves, develops. In the 18th and 19th century, Karl Plotz came up with the grammar translation method. Now, this is the beginning of second language acquisition, which ELT is a part of. He believed that basically to learn a language is to learn its grammar. If you look at the picture at the bottom right corner of the slide, it is a old, very, very old school style of teaching second language. And it is quite dry. many places, like the Middle East, still use this method. Like everything that evolves, let's go to the next slide, please. Well, this is Maximilian Berlitz. If you have heard about the Berlitz School, which is internationally known, this is much more vibrant and more dynamic. I'm going to give you a quote from Mr. Berlitz. One must speak as one learns to swim, by throwing oneself into the water. This is exactly the opposite of what we just saw in the previous slide. This is no translations. L1 is never used in class. Everything is L2. Everything is in English language. Students' first language is never used, which makes it sometimes even difficult. And this was late 19th and early 20th century. It is a conversation-based teaching and still used today in Berlitz schools, which we have 2 or 3, I think, in Dublin. Can we go to the next slide, please? After the direct method, slowly technology comes in. The audio-lingual method, 1940s to 1960s. Leonard Bloomfield, who was a linguist, and Skinner, a psychologist, they believed that through repetition and drilling, humans can achieve second language acquisition. A quote at the bottom of the slide, language learning is a process of habit formation. So if we can make second language acquisition, in our case, ELT, a habit, slowly drilling, and by positive and negative reinforcements, as students drill, we correct them and even reward them for their correct linguistic behavior. This is how the second language we're trying to achieve becomes slowly first nature. The audiolingual method is used still nowadays, although with less emphasis than before. Drilling is not considered a primary method, but in the 40s and 60s, it was something very, very emphasized. May we go to the next slide and see how things are evolving in ELT? This is Noam Chomsky. He's known as the greatest intellectual of the 20th century. He brings a very cognitive approach to second language acquisition and ELT. Now, this is interesting as he is not a psychologist. He's fundamentally a linguist and a very, very capable political scientist. Noam Chomsky believes that every human has a natural genetic ability to learn another language. And if we can develop and nurture that natural ability, then second language acquisition occurs. He calls this universal grammar. Now, Chomsky believes that we don't have 100 languages. We only have universal grammar. And all these languages are basically different shapes of the same entity, like different colors of flowers or different temperatures of the day. We only have one language, and that is in our brains called universal grammar, and we have to nurture it. If we nurture our innate ability to learn a new language, we can speak many, many languages. A quote from him, a child is born with a language acquisition device that enables them to learn any language. This is the cognitive approach in 60s and 70s by Noam Chomsky. Can we move to the next slide and observe where this evolution takes us? Now, communicative language teaching. This is basically in every language school in the Western world. CLT has a big place. CLT, communicative language teaching, believes that language acquisition is not an end in itself. It is only a means to achieve a function. That function can be speaking to a receptionist at a hospital. That function can be calling the police in an emergency. That function can be ordering food at a restaurant, or talking to a fireman whenever you have a fire in the house, when you call by the phone. Communicative language teaching believes knowing the language is not enough. Being able to use it is enough. And a quote by one of its founders, Henry Widdowson, language is not a set of rules, but a means of communication. Del Himes and Michael Halliday also assisted. And this is what we use nowadays a lot in many language schools, especially in the Western world. Learning the language is not enough. Can you use it? So it has a practical angle to it. If we could slowly move to, actually, can we go back to the slide? There is one principle, thank you. Fluency over accuracy, role plays, discussions. Now this is interesting, fluency over accuracy. CLT doesn't put a lot of emphasis necessarily on whether you pronounce something correctly. CLT doesn't put a lot of emphasis on whether you use the past participle tense correctly or incorrectly. CLT doesn't even place emphasis on if you use the gerund instead of infinitive or infinitive instead of a gerund. CLT wants to see if you can do the job. The job could be speaking to a receptionist at the hospital. So it is quite practical. You can use a wrong pronunciation. You can use a wrong grammar. But as long as you get the job done and order that cup of green tea with jasmine that you wanted at the cafe, you're fine. Could we go to the next slide, please? Now, this is my favorite. Currently in ISC Dublin, we have a lot of Italian students who are doing this, task-based language learning from the 1980s to the present. Various figures, David Noonan, Rod Ellis, N.S. Prabhu. Now, N.S. Prabhu, he founded this in Bangalore, India, actually. And India has more than 1 billion English language speakers. So what does this say? This says, this outlook, this school of thought, and we have it right now with Italian students right now in ISC, is that instead of teaching them English, let's get them to do some projects. I myself taught classes where they had to design marketing campaigns for Coca-Cola, where they had to give suggestions on a new social media platform, where they had to bring up an innovation in the mobile industry. However, all of these were done in the English language. Students don't learn English. Students are doing a marketing project. Students are innovating. Students are discussing a SWOT analysis, which is a business model where we see the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to a company. They don't know that they are learning English. Through the project and the teacher's facilitation, slowly they improve their English. So this is a very indirect method. A quote for language from N.S. Prabhu. Language is best learned when it is used to accomplish meaningful tasks. Some people call this project-based learning. So this is, again, through projects, is being done right now as we speak. Through the projects, students feel, oh my God, my English improved. Why? Because I had to learn new vocabulary when I was discussing the marketing campaign of McDonald's. I had to learn new phrases when I was doing a project about hospitality, which we had many Italian students currently even now. This is my favorite one, frankly. It has a very indirect approach. Students enjoy it very much. We put students in competition, and through the project, their language improves. Can we please go to the next slide? Sealil. David Marsh developed it in Finland, 1994. Now, content and language integrated learning. Not one of my personal favorites, but one that is used today. What happens with Sealil is that instead of teaching English, for example, in our case, students, Italian students, Spanish students, they learn their school subjects, but in the target language being English. So for example, if a student used to go to a mathematics class in Finland and learned mathematics in Finnish, now slowly he learns mathematics in English. If a student went to his history class in Italy and learned history in Italian, slowly he will start learning history in English. So this is learning the language through doing another school subject. And one famous quote from David Marsh is, Sealil is not just about learning English, it's about learning in English. If you look, some of the statistics are amazing. In Spain, 1996, it introduced Sealil in bilingual schools. Italy, 2010, it made Sealil compulsory in secondary schools, subjects like math. Now, the statistics I'm referring to is 25% higher English proficiency scores, according to the Eurydice report 2012. So this is interesting that a student learns the same subject he was doing yesterday, but in a new language. Can we, I personally believe that this is a little bit hard and it should be done in phases. However, it depending on the schools and how it's implemented, it's different. Can we move to our next slide, please? Lexical approach, a favorite of mine, 1993 and until now, Michael Lewis. Now, this is interesting. This says instead of teaching students words, let's teach them chunks. The chunks can be phrases, the chunks can be idioms, the chunks can be simple daily language, maximum 5 words. Can I have a cup of coffee? Can I see my doctor? Can I have an appointment? If you look at Finland in 2018, students practicing collocations, take a risk, make a decision. They scored 30% higher in speaking fluency. Students learning collocation recall words 50% faster than those using traditional word lists. This is by The Nation, 2011. Now I am going to give you a quote from Michael Lewis. Language consists of chunks, not words. Now it's very important to understand this. This is not just a motto. It's not rhetoric. Language consists of chunks. Imagine language as pieces of Lego. Instead of asking students to memorize each piece of Lego, you're giving students 5 Legos that are already in a shape. So imagine we put 5 pieces of Lego together, make a car. We're asking students to memorize the car instead of memorizing 1 by 1 pieces of Lego that alone don't have a lot of applicability. So instead of teaching a student fire department, emergency, we teach the student what he has to say in chunks. There's a fire in my home. Can you come quickly? Instead of teaching students heart attack, mother, clinic, we teach the students, my mother is having a heart attack. Can you send an ambulance? We teach groups. Imagine another analogy would be, instead of giving students pieces of a puzzle, we give them half of the puzzle. We're making life easier for them. It is a different approach. It's not small to large, as in inductive reasoning. It is large to small. So students learn the small words through learning the big chunks. If any of the audience are familiar with logic and reasoning, you know that in inductive reasoning, we go from small to large, and in deductive reasoning, large to small. So here we teach the chunks, and the student can guess the meaning of those small pieces. And this was 1993. Let me see if we have any interesting. Yes, China, 2015 till present, college students retained 40% more vocabulary when taught in chunks rather than word lists. And it is a source, Wang and Hang, 2017. Could we move on to the next slide to see where the evolution of ELT is taking us? Now, this is the dogme ELT. The picture at the bottom, many of you know, is Scott Thornberry. Scott Thornberry is one of the most famous characters in ELT. And he brought the dogme method, and he was inspired from Paulo Freire, who is a Brazilian educator and philosopher. Now, this is very unique. This is very chaotic. It doesn't have a framework or system. So many schools would be against this, actually. Now, this is what's interesting is that Scott Thornberry himself has written many books on various frameworks in ELT, but one of the frameworks he is proposing is not having a framework. You take textbooks out of the class and you focus on the immediate needs of students. It is extremely communications driven, and it focuses on emergent language. As you put students together, language emerges. Maybe language that they need assistance from the teacher, but as it emerges in this chaotic fashion, students improve their language. And one of the justifications of this chaos is that actually when students leave the classroom and go to the real world, it is chaos. There is no framework, there is no system. So it is not a horrible idea to get students to learn chaotically. Let them play with each other, let them see what they need at the moment, and the teacher can act as the facilitator. In Brazil in 2017, dogme-based courses led to higher student engagement and spontaneous speech. As you know, students have a sense of consciousness, and this conscious, if it's not ready in the real world, they cannot reply to cues and impulses. This method focuses on elevating the student's conscious to be able to react and act accordingly. A quote from Scott Thornberry: teaching should be conversation-driven, materials light, and focused on emergent language. And emergent language happens when you make waves. When you make waves, bits of water come out, and students start learning in bits, but they learn as they need. So it is chaotic. It is very bit by bit, but it has strong scientific justification. Paulo Freire, himself a great philosopher, has supported it. If you look at Norway 2005, teachers removed textbooks for 6 months, leading to 35% higher fluency and confidence. Now, why do we have textbooks in a class if not having a system is helping? So the idea behind this school of thought is that autonomy and chaos is what students will get when they leave the classroom. When they leave the classroom, there is no system. So it is beneficial if they can learn in a chaotic manner. We have also language acquisition accelerates when lessons emerge from real conversations. Lightbound and Sparta in 2013. So you put students together and see what happens, and it emerges. I tell you one very, very interesting experience I had in England. There was a student from Spain and student from Libya, and both of them only knew the alphabet. They were my students. Both of them knew the alphabet, so they couldn't communicate in any language. But they were friends, and they went to the cinema together without having a language. One of them spoke Arabic, one of them spoke Spanish. But I visibly observed these two slowly learning as they need the words every day. And through their friendship, two people becoming friends, and they were also flatmates, two people becoming friends who do not speak English. Because of their friendship, slowly their English built, and through continuous emergent language based on their immediate needs, whether it's going to the cinema, whether it's paying the gas bill, they have to communicate somehow. And this is from 2000 to present, can we move forward and see what the evolution of ELT brings in the next slide? The flipped classroom. Now, the flipped classroom by Bergman and Sams. This is interesting. This demands students learn the material at home. And when they come to class, they do interactive tasks for the teacher. So the teacher does not teach them. This is, for me at least, in my experience, is a very risky endeavor. Worth trying, but for me, it's risky. Having students study at home themselves with no teacher, then coming to class and the teacher doing interactive tasks and the teacher correcting them. That's why it's called flipped, because it's the opposite of what it should be. Harvard University, 2013 to present, flipped learning increased student participation by 75%, and this is Harvard. So there is some strong justification behind it. South Korea, 2016, flipped English classes boosted test scores by 20%. Kim, 2017. So flipped classroom emphasizes self-learning and then coming into class, doing tasks, performing tasks, and teacher only correcting you. If we look at what Bishop and Verriger say in 2013, flipped classrooms improve student performance by 30% compared to lecture-based learning. A quote from Aaron Sams, flipping the classroom transforms students from passive listeners into active learners. Now, passive listeners, who is that? Those are the people that when we lecture are on their mobiles on Instagram. Active learners, they have to learn at home alone, and they know the teacher won't teach them. When they come to class, they have to commit to interactive tasks, and the teacher only corrects them. That sense of urgency fuels the self-learning at home. If we look at, let me see if there's one more. Yeah, we talked about Harvard, and yes, 90% of students prefer flipped learning over traditional methods. This is the EDUCAUSE Center 2015. Now, I'm not sure if where the sample size and the population were. In Italy might be different, in Brazil could be different. However, it is something that has been used. I had an English student in England who his PhD thesis was on the flipped classroom, where students learn the subject at home, come to class, and the teacher merely corrects them. And can we move forward to the next slide and see how the evolution of ELT takes us. Blended learning, 2000s present. Well, we have Richard Carlotta, we have David Marsh, we have Scott Thornberry. This is basically where the digital revolution that started in the 80s has automated our classrooms. I'm going to read a quote from Richard Carlotta. He is the head of an educational technological firm. The best teachers will not be replaced by AI, but they will be the ones using it. So this quote shows that artificial intelligence and all these technologies don't necessarily have to replace the human teacher. They can enable the human teacher. The principle behind is basically the rise of edtech and globalization. It's a mix of, some people call it blended, some people call it hybrid. It's a mix of online and in-person learning. It integrates audio, video material. It brings chatbots into the classroom. It brings digital platforms, e-learning, whatever from the digital domain that can aid the classroom. This is blended learning, and it is a mix, online and in person. Different cultures, different countries might and could and will react differently to it. If you look at more traditional educational systems where they prefer the teacher to be the authoritarian strongman, this won't work, because when you have digital tools at your disposal, the power of the authoritarian traditional teacher is weakened. Maybe more progressively minded societies or more progressively minded educational systems, this can work there. I want to look at the impact. Increased accessibility of English learning through apps and platforms. True. People who want to learn English from any place that has Wi-Fi, through blended learning, they can. Now, you can always argue nothing beats the human touch, and I will always agree with you. But for remote areas where distances are far, as long as there is a Wi-Fi, this type of learning has a mix of in-person and online, is a blessing. I want to give you a point here. Yes, AI, chatbots, Duolingo, ChatGPT, Google AI tutors. So all these learning apps. I had a student who told me, she was from Bolivia, I think. She told me her son had learned more English from playing online games than going to an English school. So this is where technology comes in, and we see how technology aids learning. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, from the audience, I want you to choose one of these questions and give me your answer. I want to make you a little bit activate you, if I will. Which school of thought have you used in your classroom and how? Which school of thought do you believe in? Why? Which school of thought has perennial value? Why? Which school of thought is extinct? Why? What are the strengths and weaknesses of each school of thought? You can choose one. Which school of thought is mostly influenced by culture of learners and why? And can you develop your own school of thought? If you develop it, can you justify it? Now, can every respectful member of the audience choose one of these questions and answer me, I would be much obliged. I will go through them again. Which school of thought have you used in your own classrooms and how? Which one do you believe in? Why? So for me, task-based learning is the best one, which I love. I love people doing projects. Which one has perennial value? That means that always we can use it. It's not bound by time or place. Which school of thought is extinct? Probably the first one that focuses mostly on translation and grammar. Strengths and weaknesses of one of them. Which one is culture specific? And do you think you can develop your own? And if you can you justify it? I will give probably about 5 minutes and we can discuss this. Thank you. You can leave your comments with me. I welcome them very much. I am told there are some technical difficulties related to your replies, and you can't reply. So I'm going to reply to myself. The school of thought that I have used in my classroom is the task-based or project-based learning because it appeals to me. I come from a management background and I worked in management consultancies. So when I get students to do projects, whether it's projects to innovate a new mobile phone or projects in terms of a new marketing campaign for McDonald's, they learn through doing those projects and I assist them with the necessary vocabulary and expressions. So that the first question, that is how I would answer it. Which school of thought do I believe in? I believe in project-based learning or task-based learning. The reason is because my students all have to go and do jobs, and at their jobs, they have to commit to projects. Maybe after the task-based learning, one other school of thought that I believe in would be the communicative language teaching, because besides projects that students have to do, they also have to perform functions, order a cup of coffee, speak to a receptionist at a hospital. We have a response from Manuela Viada that using technology and face-to-face lessons is the best method. Manuela, thank you very much. Can you justify your answer? So Manuela Viada, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I believe that using technology and face-to-face lessons is the best method. Manuela, can you justify your answer? Why do you think technology and face-to-face? So basically you believe in blended learning, a mix of technology and face-to-face. Why do you think this method is superior to the rest? While Manuela gives her answer, I'm going to go to which school of thought has perennial value and why. I think the school of thought that will always... Oh, Manuela has answered. Because you use AI and real conversation. Well, thank you, Manuela. Manuela, my question to you is that, do you think the use of artificial intelligence inhibits the ELT classroom or enables it? Because that is one huge criticism of the blended learning, that AI will inhibit creative thinking and critical thinking in the students and teachers. So How do you respond to that criticism, Manuela? As Manuela's answering, please, everyone else who can send a message, choose one of the questions and you can join in. Well, so perennial value. Which one has perennial value? Well, I think, except the first one. Well, to be honest, Manuela has answered. Manuela believes that artificial intelligence will enable the classroom and it won't reduce the critical and creative thinking of students. Thank you, Manuela, for participating. Any other participants who would like to participate, you're absolutely welcome. As you participate, I'm going to go through which school of thought has perennial value and why. I think all of them at some point with a specific set of students and culture will have some value, even the grammar translation method. I remember students who improved their English just by translating. Which school of thought is extinct? I think none. And the reason is that all schools of thought in social sciences and humanities, they keep coming back. I mean, even if we say communism was a failure, okay, it was a failure, but it's coming back somehow in different ways, different shapes and forms. So I don't think they're extinct. Strengths and weaknesses of each school of thought. That would take a long time, but they all have it. Which school of thought is mostly influenced by culture of learners and why? I think all of them will be culture specific to a certain degree. Because when we have human subjects, students, teachers, and humans don't exist in isolation. They exist in some sort of social system that we call society. And that society is shaped by the spice of culture. So they will all be influenced by culture to a certain extent. And can you develop your own school of thought? Can you justify it? We won't have time in today's meeting to do it, but I welcome all of you to think on it. Perhaps you can think on a school of thought that is mostly beneficial to Italian language learners. So, for example, through your experiences, you can brainstorm with each other and see, is there a school of thought that would benefit Italian students? I'm told we have 5 minutes left and only Manuela has commented. Are there any questions? Manuela Viada, thank you for your comments and questions. I appreciate you participating. Are there any questions that I can answer for our lovely participants today? The whole idea of going through the evolution of ELT today was to build a strong foundation to what's to come for these classes. For our next session, I seriously recommend you contemplate as much as possible, based on your own training, abilities, and experience, to envision a school of thought that you think would benefit your students. It doesn't have to be a massive theory, but it could be a modification of one of the existing theories. But for the next class, I would seriously recommend you contemplate on it, and we would hopefully start the next session with each and every one of you offering a somewhat of a new angle, school of thought, hypothesis, concept, notion, whatever you want to call it, of what benefits Italian students, or at least your own students. So develop a paradigm, a model, similar to the models we went through today. If there are no questions, and we only had Manuela Vieda, thank you so much for participating. Hopefully next session we will have more participants. God bless you, and thank you so much for being with us today. Arrivederci.